Welcome back to the Homegrown Podcast, where we sit down with people making a difference right here at home. Not 6-second sound bites, not a polished press release, just real conversations with real people doing real work. We've talked to state representatives, we've talked to police chiefs, and today, though, we're going to talk about the future and the people that are out there shaping it every single day. Our guest today is Kwasi Acheampong, Executive Director and founder of Our Bright Future. It's a nonprofit that's empowering young people across Worcester County through STEM, entrepreneurship, mentorship, and sports. Kwasi's story spans continents, from growing up in Ghana to building a new life here in Massachusetts, to turning loss into a personal mission that's lifting up an entire community. He's not just running programs, he's rewriting pathways. And with his upcoming book, Across the Atlantic, A Boy's Journey from Ghana to America, Kwasi's actually sharing that journey with us and the world. This is a conversation about leadership, about legacy, about community, and about the belief that where you come from should never limit where you can go. So whether you're listening from the boat or the barbershop or your car or your kitchen table, pour coffee, let's settle in, and let's get into it. So Kwasi, welcome to the Homegrown Podcast. It's great to have you. And thanks for making the time to sit down with us today. I've really been looking forward to this conversation, honestly. I think your story and what you're doing with Our Bright Future, it hits on so many of the themes that I've tried to capture with this show, which is resilience and community and the impact that starts local, but obviously from your work can ripple much farther. So here's what I'm hoping to do today. I'd like to get to know your personal story and the experiences that have shaped you. And then I want to dive into the work that you're doing with Our Bright Future and how that came to be and what it looks like on the ground for people. And then finally, I want to have some talk about maybe some leadership and some challenges and what's next, not just for you, but for the communities that you're helping to build. So if that sounds good to you, we'll get started. And I guess where to begin, right? You grew up in Ghana and eventually made your way here to Massachusetts. So take us back there. What was your childhood like? Again, from Ghana all the way here. What was growing up like?
Yeah, thank you for the warm introduction. That's really nice. At the age of 10, my father said, we're moving to Ghana. And every African boy, any kid, we hear the word America, it's just the same thing, right? We have our own fantasies what we think America is, right? It's heaven to us. And to get this opportunity to come was huge to come. And, my dad had 10 kids, and he brought all 10 of his kids and his wife over. There were, we moved to North Village and Webster, and there was the boys' room, girls' room, parents' room, bunk beds everywhere. I got a quick reality check of, when you think your dad is so rich, when you get here, I was like, whoa, this is not what I imagined this to be. But my humble beginnings in Ghana was very simple of where for drinking water, there was a bucket. You might see this more in the South where, the bucket get off the roof, then, it'll stay on the ground and it will get off the roof, get it to the bucket. That was our drinking water. To get more water.
Like capturing like the rainwater?
Catching the rainwater, that was our drinking water, yeah.
Okay.
And obviously you had drought, so you go to the river and you get a bucket and you carry it on your head, and you come in and you dump it in the same thing. So that's your pretty much your drinking water. And none of us thought we were poor or our circumstances were bad because everyone else is doing it. Right? Everyone in the village, that's what they were doing. So to us, that was the norm, and that's how we lived, and that was okay. I didn't have a bed. I had a carpet you put on the floor, and that's all you had, and that was okay because every kid didn't have their own bed in their own bedroom. So when we come here, and there's 3 bedrooms, bunk beds everywhere, it was fine because I finally had a bed. I had to share my bed, and even in the bunk bed, you have to share it inside of it. But I had a bed. I had, something
Sure.
that we could sleep on. So that, to us, that was an upgrade, and that was fine as well. So what kind of changed me when I came here was, American kids are not the nicest kids in the world, but I finally make a friend, and I knock on his door, and I walk into this house and his mom is laid out, need a stick in her arm at 10 years old. And I'm just like, what is going on? And I didn't fully understand this, but I knew there's something that wasn't right. So this, 10-year-old boy kind of making promises to himself, I'm gonna use sports as my outlet. And me and you, Shawn, play soccer a little bit together. And,
Yeah.
when you have 10, 9 siblings, it's hard to find food, right? My parents do whatever they can. So if I don't go to a friend's house, sometimes you don't eat, right? So seeing all this around me, seeing, friends are 10, 12 selling drugs, then they starting to use and do all these things. This anger, just anger. And sports was that outlet to kind of just let that out, right? So I think you're seeing a little bit of it. It didn't take much, and you blow up. Oh my God, like what's going on with him? But I just quiet. I was just quiet in the shell. So I got to the game, and one game it worked for me where I played soccer and I scored 3 goals. Like wow, it was just an awesome feeling. So I got the release out.
Sure.
Anger is not something you could hold for that long, and I'm happy about it because it happened to me. Well, not because it happened to me, because when the kids come to my program, I see that. And instead of saying, oh, out, and that's it, why? Because
Yeah.
I lived through that same thing that they kind of going through themselves. It was, okay, what is going on with a kid? Sometimes it doesn't have to be a kid that came the same background. It could be a kid that has everything, but it could just be as simple as I haven't seen my dad in 2-3 weeks. I miss him.
Right.
And they're acting different. Why they acting that way? And let's get to the bottom of it. And you see in the kids too that that's not who they are as well too. But that's kind of what my upbringing was, where it changed me in my mind of, okay, how do I help others and such? So that 10-year-old boy that saw that at his friend's house wanted to change. What did I do differently? And the sports was my outlet. Things that I had to do to get out. I used that. So that friend actually eventually overdosed and died himself. But that time I was already good enough where I went to school and got my accounting degree. I did a couple of tax seasons, and I'm kind of looking in the mirror. It's like, okay, what am I doing in my life? So I kind of started something where it starts on the side. I can just volunteer and help out, and I didn't think anything of it being what it is. But once we started adding the robotics, the 3D printing, all the STEM stuff to it, what we did was we added the kids' math and science grades to it as well too, and the numbers just kind of skyrocketed. So I took it to Southbridge, I took it to Worcester, Charlton, Webster, and the numbers just kept skyrocketing. So I kind of brought to some of my mentors, and they like, you might have something here, Kwasi. I don't know what you're doing, but start tracking some of these data more to see what the trends are, to see why it's different. And what we figured out is the hands-on stuff. They don't even think they're learning in the sense where it's just playground for them. It's like learning through play, that concept.
That's right.
Right. So if I tell a kid, what's the distance from here to here? I don't know. Okay. All right. With the robot, can you tell me what the distance from here to here? In 2 seconds, I can tell you. Right. Can you make it square? All right. What's the area? Right. Just using the robot as a tool and showing them, and then picking up things faster than, me just asking them a question what it is and go figure it out.
And there's a resource to that too, of being able to use the robot and to solve a problem that may come up in real life, right? Like you said, what's the area of this? It's like, I don't know what the area is. I don't know what area is, but I know this robot, how to use it. And now I know how to solve this problem using a tool, versus it's, to them, like you said, it's playing, it's sort of a toy, but this toy is a practical application for me. And I think a lot of ways, like that's what science has become, is like, I think about like artificial intelligence and how people are using that today. It's like, it's filling gaps. It can be fun to play around with it. It can do some cool tricks, but it can also like, it can help you too. It can help you solve a problem. It can save you time. It can teach you too. Like, how did that robot actually do that? And so I know when I was a kid, I used to like to take things apart and put them back together. But it wasn't just to break them. It was to see how they functioned. And like, what is this piece doing? If I don't have this piece, does it's like when I was a kid and like sitting in class, you take apart your pen. Like, why is there a spring in it? And why does it click? And if I take the spring out, it doesn't click anymore. I think there's a lot of just those sort of like those utility sort of tasks, and like and being able to just touch it and sort of hold it and understand like, this is a tool. and
Yeah.
how do I make it work? But I guess I want to go back to you're 10 years old, and like you said, you 10 siblings. Where do you fall in the 10 siblings?
I'm number
You're not
7.
the oldest. You're number
No,
7. Okay.
number 7. Yeah. I got my beatings.
I'm the youngest of 3 boys. It's not quite 10, but I can relate, I guess. So
Yeah.
I got my brothers used to like to play football in the yard, and one of them would play quarterback, one of them would play defense, and I never got to play either. I just got to get tackled. So that's my experience. But 10 siblings, and like you said, in the bunk beds, but I think one thing you said that sort of resonates with me too, though, is when you were in Ghana and you're collecting the rainwater, you're going to gather the water, and like it wasn't like you didn't know what you didn't have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that perspective is really powerful of like, I didn't like, you weren't upset about not having the access. At the same time, like, I think someone like me hearing that thinks like, oh my goodness, because I grew up with it. And I think that perspective really, shaped, it sounds like it had a pretty powerful impact on your perspective and coming here to Webster, where you then, you have bunk beds. A lot of us would think like, I have to share a bed. Like, oh my goodness. And in reality, like your tone is more of like gratitude and like, I have a bed now. And that's, again, I just want to, sort of acknowledge that like, I really appreciate that perspective. It's informative for me. It's sort of eye opening for me. All the same though, like, um, the culture shock, are there other examples of things that like you are living in North Village and sort of, other things that you experienced that you thought like, what is this? But also maybe like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that you could have these things, or,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's more than just the bunk bed, but I just sort of unpacking that a little bit more would be helpful. Or I'm certainly curious to learn, were there other cultural things that you observed or experienced that maybe stuck with you or that were profound in some way?
Yeah, one of the things, even with my wife, when I first met her, it still bothers me to this day. In our culture, your parents are king. When I say whatever they say is law, you
Sure.
know, there's no question. And to see when I come in and my wife's friends are talking back to their parents, I'm like, what is going on? And like, what you could question that's not you're not to say yes. It can be completely wrong. You just say yes and that's it. So me and my wife, and she's talking to her mom, and they have an argument back and forth. I'm just like, stop! I'm yelling at her. It's like, stop. She's like, why are you telling me to stop? I'm just talking to her. She's that. Right, but to us in our culture, right, is discipline is the biggest thing. It's like if you walk into their house, you knock. If you don't hear them tell you to come in, you don't just open the door. It's just strictly just discipline, and that's just what the culture is. So even in school, if I'm late for school, you were beaten, you get whipped, and if you get a question wrong, you were beaten, right? Like you have to speak English in school only. You can't speak your own language in school. It was just strictly just discipline, 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 and I think that's kind of it. Helped me a lot as I got older. Discipline is one of the biggest things that I think helped me in life. Is like, all right, if I'm gonna do something, I must stay, dedicated to whatever that is and stay as disciplined as I can as I'm doing it. But I think that's one of my biggest culture shocks, seeing friends talk back to their parents. I'm like, wow, what is going on? But I developed a little bit of it now. Like, my mom passed last year, but when I called her and I'm questioning her, she kind of like, why are you questioning me? This is not how it's supposed to be. Right?
Yeah. I'm sorry to hear about your mother's
Yeah.
passing too. And
Yeah, thanks.
I was going to ask, as far as like, did your relationship with your parents evolve as you became more acclimated to, say, Western culture and sort of American culture? Or was that something that now, as you're married with a family of your own, like, has that adapted at all, or sort of how do you find that family dynamic now?
Yeah, that's one of the hardest things. And this is probably the biggest part about the book. As I'm reading, is the sacrifices my parents had to make. I'll take my father for example. Is so the reason why we all even got here is his brother was a Roman Catholic priest. So he travels the world, and he gets here and he's like, wow, this is like great opportunity for my family to come here too. So he sits his family down and he wanted to start bringing one of them at a time, but make it a domino effect where whoever he brings has to bring the next person.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever he brings has to bring the next person, kind of concept. So it gets to him and he's like, I want to bring my family. So he kind of just messed up all the mission that they had and he said, I'm gonna bring my wife and my 10 kids instead. And
Right.
it ruined his relationship with his family where he has pretty much no contact. So he comes here
Really.
and all he has is us and that's it. And he becomes I think some of that ate him alive as well too. I won't give too much of it, but it kind of get deeper, into his story of like who he is as a person. His whole identity is his family. Now that is gone, but he has us, and we're not doing what he's saying how he envisioned this to be, right? And it becomes this mess. On my mom's side of it, so we came here with our stepmother. That was his third wife. So
Okay.
in Ghana, you can marry as many as you want. So at the time, my dad had 4 wives at the time when we were coming, and he picked his third wife to come, which is my stepmother.
Mm-hmm.
My mother at the airport. So me and my brother Davis was the one that was at the airport, and to say goodbye to her, and she's crying, and I'm like, why is she crying? And she just knew she might not even see us again.
Right.
Right. So, I'm just looking at her like, wow, I'm wiping the tears. Mom, like, don't cry. We're going to see our dad. And it's okay. You can come visit us. That wasn't an option. Right. And we get here and, every 2 days, hey, can I call my mom? Can I call my mom?
Mm-hmm.
My dad's like, I don't like this. How I need you guys to move on and cuts off all communication with our mother. So now the anger that I'm talking about, so, right. So now there's no
Yeah.
mom.
Right.
Right. So in the sense of it, so this kid, my little brother Davis is 8. That's even worse, right? He was the youngest at the
Right.
time, where he's so attached to his mom, and he's stretched from that, and now no communication at all, and he just, what do I do? So in the shell, just go into the shell, quiet in schools, trying to find your ground. So when I met that friend, I was just so happy, and the reason I met that friend was at recess. Um, they were playing, I think it was a kickball game. Say, hey, Kwasi, come play because we live in the same neighborhood. And no one, I
Mm-hmm.
felt like I wasn't even included in this world. I was just walking my own little shell, walking around, not knowing what's going on. And it's like, wow, he saw me.
Yeah. Right.
Right. So come play. So I go play, and it kind of made a friendship. So when I saw that, it was like, it kind of hit me well and understand, Kwasi, you're going through something, but you're not the only one. Right. Look what he's going through right now. And he has a deal and that's his mother too. It kind of woke me up, like, wake up. Right. You can
Yeah.
sit
And
here
what
and
a
cry about,
simple
yeah,
but
yeah,
like profound gesture though of
yeah,
and like the way you put it, like he saw me. I mean, he
yeah,
literally saw you, right?
yeah,
Like it was that simple. He literally
mm-hmm,
saw you.
yeah,
But also for you as a 10-year-old with a little brother having, cut off contact with your mother, like a big culture change, moving to a new country, um, being seen and being seen as Kwasi, not as the son of or one of 10, but you, Kwasi, personally, individually, um, a simple playground gesture like that to have such a life altering, or maybe not life altering, but such a profound, powerful, um, just like a memory for you.
exactly.
And
Yeah,
again, to the friend's gesture, it was literally that simple of saying, come play with us.
yeah, yeah.
But little did he know at that point, like how meaningful that was to you, and how to this day how that continues to be sort of a moment in your life that you can trace back to. I feel seen. I feel like a person, I'm an individual.
Yeah, he changed my life in the way.
Yeah.
Even in that sense of like, me feeling bad for myself.
Right.
Right. So after I saw his mother, I was like, your mom's not here, but look what his mom's going through, but he's still here. Like, stop complaining about this one. You
Right.
need to live on and figure this out. What's in front of you. Right. So, so when I heard he overdosed, that was one of the big, that's what started. It kind of went back to all that. memory as a kid. I turned into a 10-year-old boy again. It's like, wow,
Yeah.
how do I, help kids like us? We're just
Right.
kids in a bad situation. How do we get out of this? And we just went two different journeys. I was lucky enough. I went to college, I got a decent job, but his journey was just a little different from mine. And this guy kind of looked at it as, how do I get a kid like that to come more towards my journey? It doesn't have to be college, but could it be, at least get on this journey and get away from the drugs and all that stuff and
Mhm.
see the positive things in life? And, a busy kid will never get in trouble.
Yeah,
We
right.
don't have
Good point.
time to do that. How do we keep them as busy as we can in the program? So the time and how I do things, even my summer camp, is Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. By the time your parents pick you up, it's almost bedtime. How are you gonna go
Yeah.
screw up,
You
right?
should be tired. You should be,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
what I want to just quickly to close sort of the child a little bit. And we'll segue into what it is that you're doing with Our Bright Future. But um, when did you pick up contact with your mother again, or what did you make contact again, and sort of what did that look like, and how many years later was that? And um, if you're willing to share, I'd certainly be grateful as far as the relationship that might have come with that absence of time and sort of your development here versus the experiences in Ghana.
yeah. I was 18, so from 10
Okay,
to
so
18.
8 years
So
later, yeah.
yeah, so my father called and I kind of say, hey, you heard from my mom. He's like, oh, hey, you're 18, you can talk to her now, okay?
Okay.
Right, so he kind of gave me her number, and I looked at it. So I was scared of calls. What do I say? Right, it's been so long.
Right.
But he gave her my number, so I get this random number, and I kind of picked up, and it's like, my well, my parents used to call me in Ghana. My grandmother gave me the name Pa Kwasi, so Kwasi Pa Kwasi.
Okay.
So I heard that. I was like, I turned into a little boy again. Like, mom, really so happy to hear that voice. And it's kind of we kept on the relationship that way. And how's this person? How's that person? Like, how's Davis? And kind of like, and then I connected. Davis got lucky. He didn't wait. You have to wait till he was 18
That's
to get
right.
a
Yeah.
number, because I got it, because eventually he started connecting with his mom as well too, in that concept. So yeah, 18 it was when the kind of restarted, and she became my everything. Every time she needed something, if I didn't have it, I figured it out, right? And especially in Ghana, they think if you're America, you're rich. So
Yeah.
when
Right.
the
Yeah.
call comes, oh, I need this money, and here you go. And I'm in college and I don't have any money, but how do I figure it out to send it to my mom, because
Yeah.
it's
That's
my
mom.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
Well, I'm glad you were able to reconnect, and I think I'm sure she was ultimately proud of I'm certain that she was proud of who you've become, and the success you've made yourself. And but I can only imagine being 10 years old and not having that relationship, and I think, like you said too, that sort of that creates this anger and sort of this bitterness maybe. um and I think it's interesting how you described, like, you the way you're approaching kids today and sort of in working with them is, I think, understanding that someone may lash out. Like, let's say we were playing soccer and there's some hard contact or something, and someone might think you're overreacting, like if you had a reaction to that. And your question though is like, where's this coming from? Because it's not about that play. It has nothing to do with that play. Like, what else is going on? And like you said, I haven't seen my dad in a couple of weeks, or and we don't know someone's life circumstances. We don't know. All on the field, so to speak, is that they're your competitor or they're your teammate. It's one or the other. But you don't know what happened before they stepped onto the field and what might happen after they step off the field. And so I think your ability to sort of see past that moment and to maybe probe the root of it, um, I think is probably helping more kids than you can even appreciate just process some of that information. And again, I think there's something really powerful to that, as far as just that, what's going on. And in a lot of ways, going back to when you were asked to play kickball, it's like those kids are now feeling seen, hopefully. Of someone asked me about life, not just my attitude, or sort of my outburst. They want to know what's going on, and that question alone is like someone cares. And so you mentioned, and I want to get back to the origins of Our Bright Future, because I don't want to gloss over it. There's, you experienced, as a young person, the loss of a friend, and it was to an overdose. You mentioned that. And I appreciate how you described it as there were just two separate paths that you and the friend went on. And I don't know this, but I'm assuming there may not even be a rhyme or reason as to why your path played out the way it did versus his path playing out the way it did. But it's sometimes something so simple that could change that course of, maybe you weren't exposed to the, a lifestyle and or a culture that he was, or, we could sit here and debate and try to analyze the whys of it. But the truth is, the fact is, you went down a path and he went down another, but that loss was still very personal to you. But how do you make the decision to channel that into, you know what, I'm going to try to almost like as a legacy and or as a tribute, do something. How do you get from the point of I've experienced this loss to I'm going to do something about it now? What motivates you to do that? What's the decision look like? Just how do you go about that exercise of channeling it?
Yeah, that's before the kid died, I saw him a month or two before.
Okay.
My pastor, I'll give him a shout out. Pastor Carl Vanderhoof. He's crazy enough to say, "Hey, Kwasi, let's go to Brooklyn Valley to go pass out turkeys." I'm like, what? I don't think that's a great idea. To go there, and we go to this area, and we're trying to pass out turkeys, and I'm the only black guy, and it's all white guys around me, and they're looking at us like, "We don't want your turkey.
Really?
You don't get out of here. We don't know who you are. We don't care. You might be a cop. What? Dude, get out." And I'm like, what is going on? I'm kind of like, they're right. Let's get out of here. They don't want the turkey. They just said it. Let's leave. But Pastor Carl, he said, "No fear." And he's just like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yep.
all right, let's go knock on doors then. Just go to because the kids were playing in the basketball court, and said, "No, let's go knock on some doors." As we were walking towards it, there's a trash can, one of the big dumpsters. I could hear people walking around it, and how they were walking and talking, it just wasn't. It didn't seem right. And they come out, and I look up. I'm like scared. I'm not gonna lie to y'all, scared. And I'm like, I don't know what these guys about to do right now. I'm like, I don't know what you got me into the head, Pastor Carl. And I just hear Kwasi, and I look up. It's that friend. And obviously we hug and say, "Oh my God, how you been?" This and that.
Yeah.
And who here with? Who are these people? It's like, this is my church, and we trying to post our church. So, wow, that's amazing. This and that. Let me help you.
How long had it been since you had last seen him before then?
Man. It's probably good 7 years. Good
Wow,
7 years.
that long.
Yeah. So now it's like we reconnected, and and
was it like when you talked to your mom, it had been 8 years, like did it bring you back to that, like
similar to that? Yeah. And he didn't look good, but I didn't care. He didn't look good. I didn't care. To me, it was
he's still
like,
your friend.
That's my friend, and it didn't matter. I love you, and that's it. And
Yeah.
he helped pass out all these turkeys. He grabbed two for himself. What his last words he said. He goes, "I think God's been talking to me. We need to go to church soon. Let me take your number. I'm going to call you so we can go." I think my mistake was not taking his, but I gave my number to him.
Sure.
And then 2 months later, that's when I hear he passed. So that reflection of it, I was okay. All right. I know he's not a bad person, in my heart, and I know from what I've been around, I know he's not a bad person. And I knew he got into some bad stuff. Right? And I always look at his journey of like, how he went, and these opportunities. The only thing I saw that was different, and it's not just him. All the people I grew up with there was a Boys and Girls Club bus that came to us where we lived.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids that stopped getting on that bus got in trouble. That's one thing, and I could do all analysis numbers and whatever.
Yeah, right.
Just like kept getting on that bus and going to it. I went till they kicked me out. So it's like 18, 19. Like, you can't come here anymore. You're too old. So, and I'm fighting them. So no, I need to still come, right? Like, right? Because that's what I saw. The kids that stopped getting off that bus. It's like, no, that's not cool anymore. And it was just simple as doing your homework there, playing sports. doing your homework there,
Right.
playing sports. That's all it simply was.
There's structure. There's support, structure. Yep.
That's all. It's safe space to be, right? And those kids that they'll do whatever they need to do, and then they'll get on the bus anyways. They don't find a life. That's what I realized.
It makes it's that simple.
Yeah.
But I think to your point, like you could run all the analysis and psychoanalysis and the psychology experiments, but it like that taking that bus or not taking that bus is sort of that's the decision point. That's the fulcrum is, and I think there's something to sort of extract from that, which is that what was the significance of that bus? What was on the other end of that bus versus what wasn't for them? And I think it's that structure, that safety, the mentorship, the friendship, the influence, but it is as simple as getting on the bus or not. And yeah, I mean, that's I'm sort of moved by just the visual plus the symbolism of the bus. But then how does that become, so like you said, you see him again after 7 or so years, and there's something about that, you could sense from the expression that he left you with, which is I'm going to call you, I'm going to reach out to you, almost like an awareness that I need you in some way. But also knowing that your relationship to church and sort of the relationship you had with your pastor, and shout out to Pastor Vanderhoof. I know the Vanderhoof family, grew up with them as well. And I think that influence has obviously had an effect on you as well. And maybe that's again back to those two journeys, right? That separation that you took versus the one he took. But how do you, after learning of his passing, what do you go through? Obviously, you're still personally grieving the loss of a friend, someone that you had lost contact with but recently reconnected with. But that doesn't change whether it be the memories or the influence or sort of the perspective that you have. What then leads you to think, I'm going to start or begin the journey? Because I think there's been a little bit of an evolution to Our Bright Future as well. Like you said, the folks that you had talked to, so I think you're doing something here. We should build this out, or you should expand this. What leads you or what motivates you to say, you know what, almost as tribute or in memory, or, you're going to put your energy into building out what is now Our Bright Future? How does that become? What steps do you go through, and sort of what leads you to that path?
Yeah, this so it is sit with me for a while as I try to figure out what's happening in front of me, and as I compare the journeys, I compare who got on the bus, everything. It's kind of running through my head. And
Right.
My wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, she's like, I told her that I wanted to start something like that where it's after school, this and that. But I was like, yeah, I don't know and such, But that day I was watching TV, and I saw futures, brighter futures. It kept popping up on TV for some reason. I was like, okay. So I wake up one day, it's like, I got it. My wife's like, what is going on? It's like, Our Bright Future. I was like, what is that? So that's what I want to call the after school sports program at the time. That's where, hey, that's the mindset. Sports, what God saved my life. That's what I want, And she goes, well, we'll add homework help. And then we'll add this. And then my buddy Peter Karaoke, he's like, hey, I think this is great. Let's add this. Let's add that. So slowly, me, my wife, and Peter Karaoke, my best friend, kind of sat down and kind of formed something of how we want this to look, right? After school, the timing was how and what grade we wanted to do it, right? And what ages, everything. We planned everything out where, all right, 3 to 6, 6 o'clock's dinner time for after school. So they get out of school, they come to us, right? Boom, dinner time. If we do summer camp, like I said, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. What's the age group that you could actually influence, right? So 6 might be too young to do robotics, but 7 to like 14, if you catch that brain by then, you already influenced the kid's life forever, right? You could change. I always say soccer when I was coaching, if you bring a kid past 17, I cannot help them. They already have their mind made how they want to play. Right? If you give me a kid from 7 to 14, I can show them how to play, do any move, anything, because their mind's willing to change and how you want it to be, right? They want to
can be
learn.
taught.
Yeah, exactly. They want to learn anyway, right? And Peter kind of took over the robotics part where he's teaching the kids robots and stuff like that. My wife kind of, did the arts and crafts to start. And then, I did the sports part. That's how we kind of started in the beginning. We started the YMCA Central Branch in Worcester. I probably knocked on 100 doors. I heard 100 no's. That determination, that discipline. It's like, no, like, this is something we need to do. And I know I have to do this. So I meet a guy for the YMCA. He's like, hey, just a sports guy here, but I can give you a gym in the hallway if you want to do sports and the homework help. So how many kids you got? He goes, 150. So, okay, can we rotate them? And so every 45 minutes, you get a group in. And we did that. And it kind of helped us too. We get a website and, take pictures, kind of show what it is. We didn't get paid. We're all volunteers, but it helped kind of, set that up. Then once we start adding the robotics piece to it, that's when I started to see, I went to mentors. Oh, this is pretty cool. What do you think? And he's math and science grades. And then we start adding the robotics, the 3D printing, and collecting the data. Data is the biggest thing, and seeing what works and what don't, right? And every year, as soon as it's done, I send the kids a survey. What programs you like? Which one did you like? And, and the kids are honest. It'll tell you. Arts and crafts, I don't want to color every single day, Kwasi.
Fair enough.
Okay, what do you want then? So, well, digital art. Right. So I got to find things like digital art for them. Right. So they want to make t-shirts. Right. So like, they see it, can we put a logo? Do you want your name on it, Kwasi? We'll put your name on it too. Right. In the sense of they design it themselves, do more digital art stuff as well too. So it's more so listen to them also. That's how we kind of perfected the product, seeing what works, what they like, what they don't like. And, and understanding a kid that's building the robot might not like to, program. Right. That's why we have, different type of engineers and understanding what works for each kid and kind of, helping them towards the ones that they love and, until they could just enjoy the concept, but still giving a little bits and pieces of everything that we do as well, too, so for them to figure out what they do like as well.
I think it's really interesting that you're right about kids. Like, they will give you honest feedback, whether you ask for it or not, whether you're ready for it or not, too, sometimes. But to see how it's adapted and how you've evolved into, and it was something as simple as you're relying upon friends and family as far as the volunteers. And so, that your passion is the sports aspect and you can therefore connect with kids at that level. But your wife is thinking they need homework help as well, and I can pitch in there. And then your other friend says, the robotics piece, the STEM piece, the math piece, it sort of just, grows and cascades, to itself. But every time you add something, a new layer to it on there, you're gathering more evidence, you're gathering more data. You're also appealing to a different child that maybe sports doesn't resonate with some of the kids, but the robotics will. And I think what you're doing, though, is you're also sort of getting out of those kids. It's sort of the profound question of their life is like, well, what do you want to do? What interests you? What are your passions? And if you ask the child probably before they tried the sports, or before they tried the robotics, what are your passions? I don't know. But then they get to do it. And then they get that hands-on activity. Like you said, I don't want to color. Like, arts and crafts isn't just coloring. I want to do the digital. And now it's like, oh, I found something I'm good at. I found something I like. I found something I'm creative at. And what does that door that's now opened look like? What does that future now look like? Because like you said, it's a busy kid's not a kid in trouble. And so if I found something to be busy with, they're getting on that figurative bus and they're going.
Exactly.
And I think that's the profound impact that you and your volunteers and your family are having is you're providing the bus and kids are getting on it.
Exactly. And you said something too about a patent, where you get a patent and you break it down and you're trying to figure out. You are the kids that I have, the curious mind of, right? So the challenge of, the challenges they give me is, don't let me be bored.
Right.
Don't let me be bored. So that's why I was trying new things and such and figure it out. So at first it was just robotics. When the 3D printer comes, my buddy Peter goes, every time they done building a robot, Kwasi, they want to take it home. Right? So it's $500. I can't let a kid take that home. So what can we find that after they build, they can take home? Okay, so 3D printed, they can 3D print it and take it home.
Yeah, right.
right? And
And
the
they
message
want
of
to
it,
show it off. Like it's
exactly,
something
I think
tangible.
it's
Like
great. Yeah,
I did this. It's pride.
yeah. And that's one of the coolest things. When the kid parents pick them up and they made a heart, this is "I love you, mom." Mom's crying and they hand it to your mom. That's one of the best feelings to see. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Right? They tell
Yeah.
the parents, but it just little things like, and they tell me like, right now, one of the things that they telling me right now as we go in is we call it cricket club. So digital art that I was talking about. Um, so we have the teenage groups. So like I said, the 14-year-old kids have been in my program. Now it's kind of like, again, to that age. Okay, I've done everything you've done. What else can you give me? Okay, all right. So now they want to create an online store where they taking in the orders.
Yeah.
They doing the marketing. They making the flyers. They sending it out as they come. And Kwasi, I don't like your cooking machine anymore. I need you to get an embroidery machine because we want to make legit shirts. Right. So,
Little
but
entrepreneurs. Yeah.
really just showing them at least how to do this and getting it going as well too. But they talk to you, and as long as you want to listen to them, they'll tell you what is next as well. I'm always looking for what's
Yeah.
next, not put it in front of them. What do you think it is? Sometimes it sticks, sometimes I don't. That's not it, and we'll get out of the way, right?
What
But
are some of those examples? Like you mentioned, for instance, like the arts and crafts. I don't want to color every day. Have there been things? Because it sounds like the evolution is we're adding things as we go. We're expanding, and some of it you wouldn't think makes logical sense. Like pairing sports with STEM, with homework, with robotics and 3D printing. Like it doesn't. You look at it, you think like, where's like the what is this, right? Like it's a lot of different things. Have there been things that you've added that didn't work out, or that you saw I thought this was going to go one way and it went a different way? Like I think the coloring to the digital is a good example, but have there been other examples like that?
yes, absolutely. So, like you said, the arts and crafts were one of the ones. Pretty much, like you said, it wasn't just color and such. It's more so of what I try to do, put hands on things, right?
Sure.
Because I know that's what they like. It's different from what it is, right? If I add reading class to it, they're like, that's like school, right? So I did
Sure.
this thing
Yeah.
where you get the teddy bears. So it has company donating a bunch of teddy bears, right? You put a recording in it, and they read to themselves. So I thought that was the coolest idea. They're like, no, I don't want to hear myself. Right, this right, little things like that.
Fair
I
enough.
try to, right?
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, then I'm hearing myself. I don't want to hear that. And it's okay. All right, I understand. And we'll put that to the side. But how do we else? What else can we do? They want things that are in front of them, hands on. They could touch, even though they might be programming on a computer and then doing things on the computer or 3D on the computer. They could touch a robot after,
Right.
right, and program it to needs what it needs to be. Right, they can grab whatever they printed after. Right, it's hands
Right.
on. That's what they want as much of. So the bioscience, right? They created experimental things, right? Those little science experiments that they doing here and there, right? They love that because it's hands
Hmm.
on and something that they could do.
I think that's really what I'm hearing is the kids are really in the driver's seat as far as, and I think it's really important that I think for the success and the long term viability of our bright future, that you guys you're listening to the customer, so to speak, which is the student or the child, um, but you're willing to take their feedback and incorporate it. That you're not forcing something that they don't want to do, because I think that's why kids sometimes would choose not to get on the bus. And I think what you're doing is, um, by all means, like the generosity of the company that donated those bears is important and it's critical. But you're also wanting to make sure that their investment is something the kids are using and appreciating, and so I have a lot of respect for that. You're not forcing something that the kids don't want, while all the same, it's almost like you're finding different ways for kids to eat their vegetables. Like you said, you're still learning whether you like it or not. You're going to learn something while you're here. You're applying it in a way that is of interest to you. And so there's a lot of different ways that kids can learn something. You're just finding the mechanism and the medium that they're responding to, which might be the computer based, but you're still leaving them with that keepsake of, I can develop something online, but I can then print it in a 3D model, which I can then touch. I can feel it. It's tangible. So I just think sometimes we learn a lot through our mistakes, or not even mistakes, but we learn lessons through every exercise. And it just sounds like you're applying your lessons in a very proactive and productive way.
And that's exactly what you said is exactly what happens, right? Like, if a kid comes to me, the robotics part of it, and they want to kill me, right? Like they'll come to me and they say, hey, this is not working. It's not going forward. So what did you do? Right. And try not to be an enabler. That's the best thing, right? And the sense
Yeah,
of it.
right. That's hard to do.
They become your own kids, right? In the same sense. So they come to me, it's not going forward. So, okay, all right. Well, have you tried this? I've tried that. That does not work. Have you tried that? I've tried that. Does not work. It's okay. This, right? And the good thing about robotics is, right, the robot is a dummy. It only does what you tell it to do. And that's exactly what I say to them. The robot is a dummy. It does exactly what you say it to them. So go back. So what are you saying to the robot? And they go back to the language. I'm saying this. Okay. What do you want it to do? I want it to do this. Okay. So it doesn't match what you're saying. Oh,
right.
And it clicks, right? So it's and they go back. So let me also not always say make a mistake. If you make a mistake, you can learn from it. Right? And the same thing, right? If I told him to go backwards, it's go backwards. That's my mistake. Okay, well, that's not the same language I told it to do. So come back and make sure it goes forward, right? So make a mistake and learn from it. And that's life and how we do it. Sometimes we're so afraid to make a mistake that we don't take this step forward, right? And that's the biggest thing in life. Try something, make a mistake. Okay, this is what happened. How do I learn from that and go forward?
Well, I think sometimes this is human nature, and I think it affects us equally as children and adults, though. It's sort of embarrassing sometimes to acknowledge the mistake or to admit the mistake. And what you're showing them is some patience and some grace to say, what happened? It's that simple. It's, like you said, like, what did you tell the robot to do? Well, I want it to go backwards. What did you tell the robot to do? Well, it didn't go backwards. What did you tell the robot to do? And so, like you said, you're sort of the patience that you're showing, though, allows them to go through there's some independence that they're still experiencing, which is, I solved the problem. With help from Kwasi, sure, but I solved it. And so now that mistake turns into pride. And I figured it out. And like you said, it clicks. Also, I've always found that, and this is my own experience, is if I make a mistake and it's one that I think, that's embarrassing, or like that was boneheaded, that was dumb or something, I won't make that mistake again, because I remember more of my own failures than my own successes. And I think that's the human nature aspect too. Is like, I'm sure you do too. Like, I'm sure you remember a lot of goals that you missed or shots that you missed, versus how many you had. Like you said, that one game where you had the 3 goals, sure, but you probably remember plenty of games where it was wide right, wide left, or over the net. And that's human nature. And I think kids are the same way and adults are the same way. That's just who we are. It's how we're wired. But I guess realizing we're sort of, and I appreciate your time here too, especially. This has been, I've learned a lot about you, but also I think the contributions you're making to these kids. But you mentioned earlier, and I want to sort of probe this a little bit more too, you're writing a book.
Yes.
And you mentioned it earlier, as far as, one, you don't want to give much of the story away, and I appreciate that, which means, people should go buy it. But all the same, you're a busy guy. You've got a lot going on. What sort of prompted you to write a book? What motivates you to do that? And is it going to be, based on the title, it seems like it's going to be a lot of your personal story, but how much of your experience with Our Bright Future, your transition from Ghana to the United States, is it sort of an all-encompassing autobiography? Or what can we expect from Kwasi the author?
Yeah, so I didn't even know I was a good writer to college. So I was one of those weird kids that anything that get me out of trouble, I did. So I remember being a kid and there's a group of kids, they were rapping. I was one of those was terrible rapper you ever heard. But the process of the rapping was the writing. I was like, huh. I was like, I could do that, right? So the rhyming and such, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And how to tell stories through it. So, I was a kid, I listened to Nas because of how he story told through how, he grew up. So, I get to college, I had this professor, and then we're in college, and up in New Hampshire, and I'm writing, and terrible grammar everywhere, and mistakes everywhere. And he looks at it. He goes, "Oh my God!" I was like, "What?" He said, "Well, this is like a C, but I want you to go to the library and see someone to help you proofread this. When you come back, you can see what different grade." I go to the guy, they help me proofread, and he comes back. He said, "Well, this is like a B, but I want you to go back again, all right, and look at these things again. Unless you're okay with a B." And I go back, and he's all right. Well, this is an A. If you want to get an A plus, so pretty much get to A plus. He goes, "Kwasi, you have something that most people don't." He's like, "What?" It's one, determination, obviously, because you did everything I told you to do before you came.
Exactly.
That great.
Right.
And he goes, "You are an emotional writer. Because of that, people would listen
Yes.
to what you're saying.
Right.
But if you learn these things that I'm trying to teach you, you'd be a great writer. And I think one day you're gonna write a book." I said, "Yeah, whatever."
Wow.
I didn't think of it as whatever, but it bit in the back of my mind what he said of it. So I always kind of my grammar of how I'm writing and such. I always trying to work on that. I don't know if he gave me sight words of what how to begin the sentence, how to end it, things like that. So I kind of learned all that as I was going. So I always wanted to. So it always been in the back of my mind. And as my life goes on, I think my story of everything after my mom passed, everything kind of slowed down for me. So I'm going back to Ghana again and seeing my childhood again now from a different lens. All right. And, and I coming back now, I'm helping these kids through Our Brave Future through a different lens now. It's like, I feel like I'm a 90-year-old man saying this, but I'm seeing different things from different lenses. It's okay. I think it's time to start. And I didn't even mean to start writing. I was done working, at 4 o'clock in the morning. Something just said write, and I wrote 3 chapters. My wife wakes up in the morning and says, "Hey, I think I'm writing the book. I don't know. You can't read it." And she kind of reads it. She's like, "Oh my God, well, you have to keep going." So you show us.
Right.
So she's like, "Keep going. I think you got something here in a sense." So she kind of motivated me. So most of the time I wrote, I didn't. I actually wrote my rough draft in 2 weeks of like just getting everything out of the stories and
Yeah.
how I wanted to shape. And after I was done, I was like, all right, this might be something that I want to put out, and I had to be vulnerable. I was vulnerable any way I can, and let
Yeah.
me understand it's okay to be vulnerable. And this book is gonna make you smile. You're gonna laugh. You're definitely gonna cry, and all of it together. And that's what I kind of want to put out and let everyone understand. Life is it's a roller coaster. Right? You go up and down, up and down. Whenever I always tell my sister when she calls me, anytime anything bad happens, I always tell her, "Oh my God, this happened, this and that, and this happened." I said, "Well, that means something good is coming." Right?
Yeah.
Anytime
I mean,
something bad
there's
happens,
wisdom in
right?
that. Yeah.
Something good is about to happen. Right. So
Right.
let's not miss it when it comes.
Keep
Right.
your eyes open. Look for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right.
Exactly.
So sometimes you take things for granted of like I said, simple as a bed, right? Simple as that. Right? That can get taken
That's
away.
right.
That can get taken away in a second. But every day, because you sleep on a nice bed, you're not thinking this is a blessing itself. No one, somebody else
That's
might
right.
not have that. So when the blessings come, you just enjoy it. Live in the moment and enjoy as much as you can, because that can go as well too. So that's all life pretty much is. There's good times and bad times, good times and bad times in between. How do you deal
When
with
you
it?
were writing, did you find yourself as you're reflecting, did you miss any of those blessings that now you're thinking, man, what a moment that was? Like I didn't know how good I had it, or is it, I guess that roller coaster journey you're going to bring the reader on, you lived it, but you had a firsthand account of it as you're going back and reflecting on pivotal moments in your life, the stories you want to tell. Did you find yourself reassessing the moment a little bit from your own lens to say, I wish I appreciated that more when I had it, or alternatively, I didn't realize that was a low point, or, I think part of and you mentioned it, and I think the word you used was vulnerable. And I think that that's the right word, obviously, is that writing a book and telling your story, but also being willing to share it is
Yeah,
vulnerable.
yeah,
And there's something profound about that, but it's also, there's some raw emotions that you're exposing to people.
exactly,
And
exactly.
um, how do you, I guess, when you going through that experience though, were there moments that you thought, I, I didn't realize I was learning a lesson then, but
Yeah.
here I am.
Yeah. So how I wrote it was every age. So like from 10, right? That I wrote it in a perspective of that 10-year-old boy. Right. So I wrote it in every age of, so if you read it, it's the same concept. Like, I think I wrote a little bit on the website where I'm talking about coming here so excited to get locked in the bathroom. As an adult, I'm like, you got locked in the bathroom, you didn't get out, and you got on the plane, you left. That's a 10-year-old boy from Ghana that's trying to get to America, to heaven, and now you locked in his bathroom and you missed your plane. Oh my God, that's dramatic, right? In the sense of it. My father, his sacrifice, and my mom, her sacrifice, to let your kid get here, to leave, and not understanding of like what's going to happen to him. But I know it's a better life out there for him. So I'm just going to give him up. My dad is like, I'm going to cut off my whole family to bring, my
Right.
immediate family, that sacrifice of it. Right. Like, I didn't appreciate it as a kid. I just took it as, I'm your son. You're supposed to do that. All right. But no, he did not. He could have just brought his next sibling and it kind of just kept the thing going. Right. So my mom could have said, no, you're staying right here. Right now, I look at my family now without those sacrifices. My kids can't live the life they live now because they did what they did to get me here as well too. So their sacrifice is a huge part of it. Where I appreciate it after I wrote it. It's like, if they didn't do that, I would not be here today.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Like in the moment, like you said, your first thought is that you're my dad. That's your job. But in reality, he's realizing, and he might have even thought to himself, I'm their dad. I have to do this for them. When in reality, though, he made a choice in that moment that was not, as you pointed out, not the popular choice, not in some people's minds, especially his family's, not the right choice. But from your perspective, he made the right choice, and the rest is certainly history from there. But I guess just to sort of close up, I want to zoom out a little bit and give you an opportunity. One, I think as you're experiencing this, going through the building our bright future and the programming, is there something you wish that the public at large either knew or should know, or even, one of the things that we like to do on this podcast a little bit is sort of is talk to each other and talk to community. So is there something you want the broader community to know, or sort of a message you want to leave us with, as far as maybe something you learned through Our Bright Future, or something that you're doing with Our Bright Future, or something about your book? Just sort of like one of the reasons that motivated me to start this entire podcast was I'm sort of watching our discourse online, and I'm watching some of our attitudes toward community, and there's sort of a cynicism and a bitterness, and sort of I think a disconnect in a lot of ways. And so that's what motivated me to start having to reach out to people like you, that, like you said earlier, like you and I sort of grew up together in a way. Like we played sports together. But I regret that I wasn't that friend that said to you, come play. But all the same, this is the conversations I want to try to develop and have on this podcast really are positive. Sure. I want to talk about good things that are going on, but I also want to try to resonate with people and leave them with something. So is there something through your work that you wish either the broader community or sort of our so to speak leaders knew or should know or should do, that maybe they're not, or that they just maybe take for granted?
Yeah. One of the things I learned, and I think my summer camp is what at Nichols College is the biggest thing that I learned, because I get kids from all over. Right. So I get kids from, Worcester, I get kids from Webster, Dudley, Southbridge, all over, and they all come together in one place. Right. When they get there, one thing I realize is they're all just kids. Doesn't matter how much your parents make. Doesn't matter where you came from. It's kind of the same concept. When they get there, if I put all of them together, I could take a kid from Southbridge, the kid from Webster, and put them together and say, hey, you guys are a team. You're going against this team when this robotics competition. Right. They just become best friends in the moment. And they want to go against the other one. They don't. It doesn't matter, right? And then we're talking about, and then that's what this world has been, right? This against what and this against what. At the end of the day, right? We're all just big kids. We're all just big kids, and what influences is our families, right? What our backgrounds, what we were taught, is what influences our opinions, everything, whatever you like it or not. Unless you literally go the opposite. But
Right.
what is it? Politics. Your views on politics. Everything that we do is influences our family. Everyone is from different places in life. That's what I'm trying to say. Everyone is from different places in life. Their views might be different from yours because they see it from different lens. Right.
Hmm.
If you put yourself in somebody else's shoes for a second, right, I think the world will be a better place. And that's one of the hardest things I feel like sometimes. And you had Joe on when I first met Joe. One of the best things, me and him, that right, like he just assumed, right, or I just assumed, he's Republican. I don't even have a party, to be honest.
Sure.
He's
Yeah. Most people
Republican
don't. Yeah.
because the media is telling you Republicans don't like black people.
Sure. Yep.
That's the concept, right? And I said with Joe, I was like, Joe, me and you are very similar in terms of our mindset, right? As we both want to help the community, we both want to help the kids. We have the same views. You, what is right? What does that color got to do with it? Chief Shaw, it's one of the best things situations for me is I meet him, and growing up, you were told to be afraid of cops, and I'm sitting in his office. I'm like, huh, I'm not afraid, right? And then, right, and then now you know, I can meet any cop and talk to him and have the same relationship I have with Chief Shaw with any cop now, and I'm not afraid because I met him. He's like, no, Kwasi, I'm a person like you, and I have a family too, right? And right, same way you have a family, I have a family too, right? And
That's right.
we put right, and kind of just seeing that relationship as well too. So this world might seem what it may seem is not what it is, and that's one of the best things I learned is just put yourself in somebody else's shoes, right? And as a kid, I get it from North Village, right? You're afraid of cops. I get that standpoint of it. I understand, but to understand Chief Shaw's standpoint, right, I have kids. I have a wife. I need to go back to as well too, and I need to protect my family too in a sense, and put myself in his shoes. It's like wow, if I cannot do that job.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
cannot do
And
that job and then put myself in that shoes as well too. So yeah,
it's a good way to put it, though, because I think what you're describing is essentially we have this tendency, and I think, again, it is human nature, but it's we turn people into characters. And as a result, we assume what their beliefs or their thoughts might be, or we assume how they might act based on their role that they're playing versus the people that they are. And I think it's not that it's a mistake necessarily. I think what we need to do is, to your point, take that step back and acknowledge that my job is not my identity,
exactly.
or the role that I'm playing is not my identity, but I am bringing my person, who I am, into my job. And so Chief Shaw is the police chief in Webster, and Joe McKenna is our state representative, and he does define himself as a Republican, and that brings with him a certain ideology that I can assume. But until I get to know him personally, I don't know his values. And we might learn that, to your point, the more we get to know the individual, the more they reveal their values to us. Um, and so I think it's a great, again, very simple way to just reframe how we approach people is, I don't know. And it's, again, back to the kids that you're working with, why are they upset today? It might be because of something that happened last week. And I don't know what happened last week. I don't know their circumstances. But I know it has nothing to do with the play. Right? I know it has nothing to do with not being able to figure out why the robot's not going backwards. Like what's up? What's going on? Um, and I think that simple gesture, that simple grace, has the potential to really be a powerful influence. It's going to be as simple as that moment that you were asked to go play kickball in that person's life. Potentially, someone cares about me. Someone wants to know why I feel a certain way or why I'm acting a certain way. When in fact there might be circumstances or times that nobody asked that question. People just assume you're a bad kid. They just assume you've got an attitude or a behavioral problem, and so let's now paint that child with that expectation, and they're now down a path. And so what, just quickly to sort of wrap up here a little bit, but um, what's your vision? What do you want our bright future? What's that legacy? 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what do you want for our bright future? What do you want people to know about it?
Yeah. So right now, we're in the process trying to buy a building. Actually, the old
Okay.
post, the Southbridge one of the things I realized is we don't have a center, right? We want a place where we
Yeah.
call home, where the kids can come and safe, and be kind of parted all over the place. But what's happened is I have too many of those where I don't want to water down the product. I want a good product where um, I could offer it to the whole community. So with this, I need help. I need the community help, right? It could be in-kind donations. People think that's one of the biggest things I think you could give is your time. In-kind donations, whether it's, hey, we have the building, I'm a contractor. Can I help with this, right? It could just be simple. Today, I just want to come volunteer my time. I have this idea. Can we do gardens in the yard there for the kids? It's kind of, can we add this program where I'm a carpenter? I can come in and show the kids how to build a table. Any way that we can help, or hey, I can't be there, but financially, I could give $20 a day to help these kids. Any way that you can help. One thing I realized about this as I started is I cannot do this myself. I cannot.
Yeah.
I cannot stay here and take any credit for anything I have done, because I have not done any of this myself, and it's been the community. And thankfully, I realized that at a young age, my community raised me. Right? And like I said, we have 9 siblings. You have no place to go eat. So my friend's family, when I went there, they fed me. Right. So when I went there and I
Mm.
see their mom, I called her mom because they fed me like their own
Yeah.
kid. Right. And
Right.
I see their dad, I call him dad to this day. When I see him, I give him a hug and kisses like that little kid again, because when I went to their home, they fed me like their own kids. Right. So my community raised me in that sense. That's what we're trying to do, the same thing here. And the only way that I could do it is with the community to fully help these kids as well too. So any way you can help, reach out to us, and we can partner in any way we can to help these kids get together.
We'll make sure we include in our show notes and elsewhere on our social media, etc., how folks can actually reach out to you and provide that assistance. And I think to Kwasi's point, it your assistance and your help to an organization like Our Bright Future doesn't have to be. Don't make assumptions about how you can help. Just ask how you can. Like you said, if it's resources and finances, of course that's going to be helpful. But so is your time, and so is your promotion too. If you've got folks that you can talk it up to in your network, getting the word out as far as the positive work that's being done there is also just as important as cutting the check, but also sharing your time. And so don't make assumptions about how you can help. Just have that willingness to help. And we'll make sure that as we promote this program and this episode, that we give folks that access to the information about how they can assist. I guess any last thoughts or anything else you want to share before we close our episode? We're a little bit over an hour now, which is I was not that I was worried, but I thought, I hope I have enough to talk about with Kwasi. And there's probably like a dozen questions I didn't ask you that I had hoped to. But what that tells me, of course, is that we're going to want to have you back on at some point to talk about your progress. And hopefully, when that happens, you'll have that building and have the sort of the growth, and we'll be able to do some exciting promotion of that. But anything else as far as closing thoughts you want to share with us or share with our broader audience, who as we build this out, hopefully grows every episode. So.
Yes, the book, Across
Yeah,
Atlantic, The Boy's Journey, from Ghana to America. So May 15th on Amazon. We'll share the link on Facebook. Um, we're doing our launch for ebook. So from 12 o'clock to 2 p.m., we want everyone to download the ebook so we can become an Amazon bestseller. And then on May 30th, we are partnered up with Book Lovers with Deb down in Webster as
great.
well to do a launch party. So everyone's invited. So if you want to come down, stop by. If you want to buy a book, I'll sign it. I'll answer any questions that you like to as well too.
Well, I will be there at Book Lovers. Hopefully, you'll sign my book. But again, I think just to goes to show, I think your story is something that is worth it's worth sharing. I'm glad you're able to do that and willing to do that. I'm glad you're vulnerable enough to share it with us. I think it's also something that we can learn from, certainly. But I think what you're doing too is sort of revealing just the way that you're describing and sort of experiencing your own life, your own journey. I think a lot of people, if they use the same lens to look at their own story, they might find that there's those moments in their own life where they either chose to get on the bus or not get on the bus, so to speak. And that, so I really appreciate you just sharing your perspective with us and sharing your journey with us. I'm glad, like I said, vulnerable enough to write the book and put that down into words. I'm glad your wife encouraged you to keep going after that 4 o'clock in the morning writing session you found yourself in. But also, I'm glad that you somehow managed to have the conviction and have the power to turn the mourning of your friend into a mission, and to find a way to let that story not be the end of his story in so many ways, but also to turn that story into something where you thought, I've got to find a way to reach these kids to prevent another tragedy from occurring, which in and of itself, I think, turned a very dark experience in your own life into changing the lives of others that, frankly, who knows what their fate would be or what their journey would look like without your intervention, without your assistance. And like you said, there's a lot of humility in the way you described it, as far as, you've done nothing by yourself. But I would say, Kwasi, you've done plenty by yourself, and you're motivating others to get involved, and you're encouraging others to get involved. You are building a community that I think a lot of us are proud of. And so that journey of a 10-year-old coming to our community, frankly, has had such a positive influence on our community. So thank you for sharing your story with us. Thanks for being here, for joining me on the podcast. And again, I just want to acknowledge that the reason we do this podcast is to highlight the people that aren't just talking about change. People like Kwasi are living it, they're building it, and they're doing it right here at home. There's a lot of good happening in our area and our region. And Kwasi, again, you are certainly a model of that. So thank you for joining us today. It's great to see you again. Thank you for our listeners for tuning in again. We'll have more episodes to come, certainly. But until then, be well, be good to each other, and I guess we'll see you soon. So thanks again, Kwasi.
Thank you so much, sir.